loud. What's going on, everybody? This is Eric Velasquez with Alamo City Agenda, and we are here. We're back. This is the first episode of the season. I forget what season it is already, so whatever. But we're back, and we have an election coming up. Surprise, surprise, in November. And one of the positions, which, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really the only elected position for Bexar County, not for like shirts and all that.
Yeah, some of the little cities have something going on, but yeah, in terms of what most folks are going to see in Bexar County, this is the only non-constitutional amendment item on the ballot.
Right. So still vote.
Yeah.
Even though it's not like president or mayor, you still vote. Okay, please. Yeah. So you are running for. Well, actually, hold on. Before we start, I don't want to hit you in the 1-2 punch. How was your weekend?
Oh man, my weekend was way too short. So a buddy of mine and I, we actually transplanted some trees, some mountain laurels that were crowding my driveway. So he and I went and got a shovel and dug for a few hours. So I've got them sitting in pots now, and hopefully they survive. But
note to self: don't be Dan's friend, because then you're gonna have to do manual labor.
Hey, no, it's fine. He benefited because he got to take home some of the saplings.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
It was mutually beneficial.
And you could use those to plant along the San Antonio River, maybe.
I can,
right?
So they were mountain laurels. They're native. They would be very happy there. Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of the San Antonio River, you are running for what position?
So I'm running for one of the 2 at-large positions for the the San Antonio River Authority Board of Directors.
So there could be 2 winners?
There can, yeah. So it's kind of a quirky setup they've got here. But yeah, the top 2 vote getters on November 7th will both get a seat at the table.
That's different.
It is, yeah. It is different. So because they had a sunset process that they went through a while back, and they decided to shrink the terms. So before the terms were 6 years, they dropped them down to 4. But that resulted in both the at-large positions being on the ballot at the same time. And so in order to get them re-staggered, they're going to do a 4-year term for the top vote getter. And then they're going to give a 2-year term to the second highest vote getter.
So you want to be with the first one?
I want to be number 1, yeah.
We're number 2. You don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do that.
Right.
All right, awesome. Sorry, this table keeps wobbling, and I'm afraid I'm going to bust this jug that's here. By the way, we are at Wild Barley Kitchen and Brewery, a proud sponsor of Alamo City Agenda. They have let me grace these halls here for the past year, and I appreciate it. So cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, I think this was I was one of your first in the last season when you kicked this off right here at this location.
Was it?
It was one of the first.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was terrible.
We had some technical difficulty.
We had terrible technical difficulties. And I, of course, it was my fault. You know what? I would try to go fancy, and I had the crazy lights, and we were like, looked like we were some, Dazed and Confused movie, but, it's all right. We made it up.
Yeah.
And it worked. And
And it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. It's just nobody got to hear it the first time. All right. So tell us, what is your background experience in this field?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm proud to bring a really relevant set of expertise that I think are going to be very valuable to that board once elected. So on the professional side of things, I've spent the last decade until January this year working at Southwest Research Institute. And during that time, primarily designing and implementing multi-million-dollar statewide infrastructure projects, primarily focused on transportation, but that project management experience is really central to the vast majority of what San Antonio River Authority is doing on a day-to-day basis. So that's the professional side, bringing that civil engineering experience that's going to be deeply relevant to understanding what the authority does and the projects it's executing alongside the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Separately, on the personal side, many years of experience advocating for the folks right here in Bexar County and proving an ability to navigate City Hall, navigate the county, navigate local state representative offices, and deliver results for folks. So that story all began as my time president of Thunderbird Hills neighborhood, during which time one of my most favorite success stories was the creation of a 10-acre park in collaboration with Councilwoman Melissa Cabella-Haverda. We worked with the developer that was looking to develop these 40 acres and identified an opportunity where we could take 10 acres of that park, create a buffer for the folks that were going to be directly adjacent to that development, and create a park for the folks within the neighborhood in the process. And so just that tri-party negotiation, working with the members of the neighborhood, working with the developer, working with City Hall to figure out a win-win-win solution. And so that kind of experience is going to be critical to whoever's going to represent.
Yeah. So with that though, you know, this job, this position, some people have said it's not really like a political, political factors don't really factor into this job. Do you feel that that's correct, or do you think that you have to have a lot of political savviness to be in this position?
Sure. So I think certainly what is true is that the partisanship that you see out in DC is not a factor, nor should it be a factor in this. This one interesting fact about the San Antonio River Authority Board is it's composed of members from Bexar County, yes, but it actually also has representation from Wilson, Goliad, and Kearns. And so you tend to see a difference in political leanings between those counties, where the others are more rural, we're less rural. And so you tend to see more Democrat kind of leanings versus more Republican leanings in the downstream counties. But at the end of the day, in talking with the board members that are currently sitting there, that really never ends up being relevant to the conversation. Cool. It's all focused on, let's make sure the San Antonio River and the creeks feeding it are operating at maximum efficiency, both from an ecological perspective and most importantly, from a flood management perspective.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because, you know, things get political real quick. Yeah. And I mean, it's the river. You know, I mean, not that it's not important, but it's does it ever get to a political,
right?
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think the folks on this board have historically understood the just central place that the San Antonio River and its tributary creeks play both in our history and in our future. I mean, the reality is we would not be here as a city and as a region without the San Antonio River. It is literally the reason we came here, and the reason that we thrive today is that access to that amazing source of water.
How many times do you go down to the downtown river? Be honest.
So the downtown river, maybe once or twice a year. I don't love getting all of the tourist bombardment when I'm there. The creeks, I'm much more inclined to go and walk along. So a fun fact actually about the river walk, what we think about the 19-mile horseshoe that's kind of right there, that's actually the one segment of the San Antonio River that the San Antonio River Authority does not have jurisdiction over. So that...
Well, okay. All right.
So the piece of the river, so the San Antonio River is 240 linear miles. Okay. There are 19 miles in that horseshoe that we are not responsible for. Everything else we are. Everything upstream, everything downstream.
It's too important. It's too important. No, you're not allowed. That's crazy. All right. Well, that makes no sense in all the sense.
Right.
Kind of like Broadway, right?
Oh my gosh.
In a sense.
I could go for an hour. On that. We're so for those who don't know, we are on Broadway right now at our current
8403 Broadway. Come on by. Grab a water,
grab a brew, grab lunch,
beer. Sorry. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh no.
But we're on Broadway.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was gonna plug the location.
Okay, sorry. No, you're good. What's the motivation to get into this? I know obviously you ran for District 1. 7, my bad. 7.
The other one that had a runoff.
Yeah. District 7. They look the same, you know?
Yeah, right.
District 7 didn't go the way you wanted to, but
sure.
What was that motivation to keep going on?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so the reason that I quit my job and started working to initially earn the support of the District 7 residents and now the River Authority is because I realized sometime over the past few years that public service is really important to me. There's an opportunity to get engaged and to fight for a community that's done so much for me over the years. And so what I said throughout the campaign is, we're playing to win, but in the event that it doesn't happen, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to continue fighting to represent this community. But what is motivating me specifically for this opportunity to serve is man, I've been out in nature my entire life. So I grew up, I was kind of a weird kid, which will shock no one who knows me. But I didn't play with toys like most kids. All my toys just ended up sitting in boxes. But what I did end up doing is I would be out in the backyard digging holes, planting trees. Like I was transplanting plants when I was 9, 10 years old. So it's a funny story. My very first business, I was 10 years old. And my parents had this massive sago palm in the front yard. It was constantly creating pups, little baby plants off of it. And so I discovered there was a business opportunity here because no one wants those little babies all around it. It just ends up looking cluttered and you can't see the main plant. So my parents would remove them. I would plant the baby plants that were chopped off of the main plant. And my brother and I would drive, we called it Rossiter Brothers Nursery was the name of the business. But we would take a wheelbarrow with all these potted plants and drive them around and sell them to the folks in the neighborhood. Nice. And so, on a good weekend, I can make a couple $100 selling I paid for potting soil. And so it's a really fantastic business model. Keep costs low and maximize margin. But so it's, ever since then, I've been out in the dirt. And like I said, even this past weekend doing the same thing. So nature is a big part of my life.
Wish the government would operate that way, huh?
Minimizing costs. I don't know that our governments know how to do that.
Did they ever find that F-35 that crashed?
The $100 million plane that no one can find?
$80 million? Yeah, $80 million.
Well, the stealth on it is working though, right?
Yeah. it's the
stealth
radar
fighter, right?
pattern of a hummingbird. All right. So what can you bring to the table?
Sure. So it's amazing.
Besides your weirdness.
Besides my weirdness, which is a critical piece, right?
Is,
you got to have that.
Yeah.
But no, I think what I bring to the table, like I said, the civil engineering experience is going to be important to understanding the business. But I think what I'm more excited about bringing to the table, which would be kind of unique to the current board makeup, is that civic engagement that I think is lacking right now. So one of the things that I notice as I go and meet with residents throughout Bexar County, no one knows what the San Antonio River Authority is.
You told me, I didn't even know what it was.
Right. And I think that's very representative. So when I meet with these groups that are generally very civically engaged, that are very much trying to be aware and be involved in what's going on, groups that certainly have an interest in knowing, they don't know.
Right.
And so I think that's not an indictment on those folks who are actively engaged. It's an indictment on Sarah and our lack of fully engaging with the community. And I don't think it's nefarious. I don't think there's a bad intent behind it, but I think we just haven't had leadership that has pushed to get out into the community and to work with folks to fully engage and to make sure that the way we're spending taxpayer dollars and the way that their elected officials are operating aligns with what the community wants to see. And so my commitment is on day one to continue doing what I'm doing right now, which is go out and meet with the community where they are and to push the San Antonio River staff and my fellow board members to do the same and get engaged with the community and start soliciting feedback and actively looking for opportunities to do even better.
Does Sarah work with, I think there was a cleanup organization, San Antonio River Aid, or I guess Sarah also, right?
Right. So, yes, San Antonio River Aid, amazing organization. They did a cleanup at the lake, Woodlawn Lake, just a couple weekends ago, I think. Amazing organization. They're not directly affiliated with the River Authority, but they certainly support a large part of our mission. So I haven't said it yet, so I'll say it real quick. The mission for the San Antonio River Authority is threefold. So we've got safety is number one, so that's flood mitigation. Number two is clean, so right there. And then number three is enjoyable. So that's walkable, bikeable trails and, a nice environment that folks can enjoy. So those three things together make up the purpose for the River Authority, why we exist, what we're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
And the hungry ducks. The hungry ducks.
Please don't feed the ducks.
Don't feed the ducks. Don't. Just don't. Yeah, that was one of the things is, so like, do they talk to each other at all?
I am not aware of a direct communication. I think they kind of operate independently, but
I would think that you would want to partner up with something like that, like some collaboration with, they're already doing a lot of the hard work.
They are, absolutely. Right? So it's possible there's informal conversations. I couldn't honestly answer that with full knowledge of it. But I mean, for the most part, it's not hard to observe when there are parts of the waterway system that need a little bit of help. There's actually a stretch along Martinez Creek right now where unfortunately a homeless encampment is resulting in a lot of waste ending up in Martinez Creek. So that's been on my radar, and I've been trying to work with the city to get something done about that, because it's just, you know, cups and stuff just ending up down in there. But the other organization that is connected with the River Authority more closely is the San Antonio River Foundation, San Antonio River Foundation. And they are kind of the nonprofit arm of the River Authority. And so their mission is to supplement what the River Authority and its mandate can do, but outside of it. So it has more purview to do the stuff that doesn't align with what the government entity that is the San Antonio River Authority is able to do.
I don't know if this is happening or not, but if you find out that Sarah is only working with a certain organization because that's all they've known, or that's all they're like,
right,
you know, are you going to try to push the boundary of, hey, let's work with more organizations, not just one organization?
Absolutely. No, I mean, it takes a village. The River Authority has, you know, limited abilities. They're a great organization. They do what they can, but unquestionably, if we can mobilize the community and get them involved to help, I think there's absolutely no good reason not to do that. And I think that goes back to that active engagement with the community, that actively seeking feedback for what we need to be doing and how we need to be collaborating with entities that are already operating.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing in San Antonio I've noticed, is the non-collaboration of nonprofits that, you know.
Well, and I think we see that at all levels of government here, right? I mean, I see it with the city, I see it with the county, where there are opportunities where there's duplicated efforts a lot of times because these different entities are just pretending like they operate in a vacuum. Yeah. And the reality is that's a waste of taxpayer dollars. We need to be taking advantage of what's happening out there and adding to it.
Sorry, I had to do that.
I love it. Looking at the board like, what's he trying to do?
And we're done, folks. What are some challenges that face the river that you know of already that you're like, this has to be done already? Why isn't it done?
So flood mitigation is the top of our list of things with safety, and it's something that is increasingly a problem. So we are actually contracted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to develop the floodplain maps that FEMA subsequently shares out that inform who has to get flood insurance, who is susceptible to having their property destroyed when a flood comes through. And unfortunately, with the latest revisions, the data show that we are getting worse, not better. So there are over 1,000 folks within Bexar County that are in the floodplain that were not last time we did these maps. And so just for a little bit of context there, that's not, so the River Authority doesn't just decide, hey, you get to be in the floodplain because we said so, right? It's the data shows us where it is likely within a 100-year period for a major storm to end up with water. And so the unfortunate thing about that is following literally hundreds of millions of dollars invested by the county, invested by the city, and invested by Sarah to mitigate floods. So we've put an incredible amount of work, particularly over by Woodlawn Lake, in building the various laddie water retention areas that help kind of slow down the water when we get a massive torrent that can't be accommodated by downstream. And so we can basically store that water for a period of time and mitigate some of the potential negative impacts of it. But that retention is simply insufficient and is resulting in challenges that we're going to still need to fight and keep fighting.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest issue is folks in the floodplain.
How do you plan on building those partnerships with organizations or other entities that could help?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's an extension of what the campaign already is, right? I mean, if you're campaigning right, you're meeting with various community organizations, you're meeting people at their front doors, and you're talking with them. And I think that's how those connections happen. I think it's going to those nonprofits that are already involved with the river and asking them, look, what opportunities do you see from your perspective to collaborate? Because Sarah said we can assume what would be useful for these organizations. We can kind of like one-sided theorize that, well, this might be helpful or this might be helpful. Right. But we should be having conversations, and it all comes down to that. All comes down to conversations and coming in with an open mind for how we can improve the end result for the taxpayer.
Can Sarah get funded by private entities to get like a donation or no?
So not a donation, but it's interesting you bring that up. So our tax base, we generate about $30 million a year from property taxes. Excuse me. And so that's roughly $50 per household on your property taxes. So not a huge chunk in the grand scheme of things, but it ends up being about $30 million, which can exclusively be used for operations and maintenance. So that's just paying salaries, that's maintaining the 4 dams that we operate, that's things like that. Separately, we've got about $300 million in budget outside of that, and that comes through contracts that we execute for the county, for the city, for other entities that trust us to be the ones to go out and make these projects happen along the San Antonio River and the various creeks. So a great example right now is actually funded by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the West Side Creeks effort. So that is looking at, I mentioned Martinez Creek earlier, which is one of the 4 creeks that are being targeted. And we actually just this week, earlier this week, San Antonio River Authority gave an update, the 30% update, showing us what the plans are. And so if you're familiar with the Mission Reach Trail, it's beautiful. It's all natural, and it doesn't have those big cement sides, which it turns out are not actually good for flood management. But back in the 60s, we didn't necessarily realize that. And so West Side Creeks is looking to do the same thing for these 4 other creeks throughout San Antonio that we already did along the Mission Reach, and eliminate those cement walled rivers, and instead use the natural base that would have been there originally, reintroduce native plants, reintroduce native wildlife, which as a result will give us improved flood mitigation as compared to the cement sides, because it allows water to leach down into the aquifer, all these other things that are good. And so it'll provide flood mitigation that wasn't there before, but also improve the environmental landscape throughout the city. It'll also address the heat island issues by reintroducing trees and other things like that. It has so many amazing side benefits. I actually want to touch more on that for a second, because the River Authority has potential far beyond just water management, which is what we all think about. So the 2 big items that I see as central but often overlooked with the River Authority is 1, transit. So you think about all the walkable, bikeable trails that can be introduced along here. Suddenly you have opportunities for folks who would like to travel either for work or for pleasure throughout the city that don't have to rely on the bike trails on the streets, or no bike trails at all on the streets. And also keep in mind, even if there's a marked space for bikes on streets, they're often not protected, or I think almost exclusively not protected in this city. And so it's very dangerous a lot of times. And so the more opportunities you give people to travel safely throughout the city without having to be on roads, the more attainable it is for folks who choose to use bikes or other modes of transportation that are maybe better on the environment. So that's important. The other big thing is economic development. So a huge value that the River Authority can bring is more attractive spaces where businesses can thrive. And so there's great opportunity there as well to build our economy and invest in communities that haven't been invested before. And I think, so one of the things I didn't mention before, I've served for years now on the Brooks city-based board of directors. And so in that experience, I've had a firsthand opportunity to steer economic development on the south side, where folks have been underinvested in for literally hundreds of years. And so I think that experience will be crucial to designing projects with the River Authority that target those inequities and give folks opportunities to be lifted up and to be greater contributors to the economy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't think of the transit part. You hear transit, you think buses and stuff like that. But yeah, it's now that they've connected all the parks together and all the trails, like.
Well, and it can be a combination, right? You can use your bike to travel along one of the creekways and then slap your bike on one of the buses and take your route wherever you want to go. I mean, you can do all of the above. And I'll plug Via real quick here. They've got a really great platform now.
Via. Sorry.
No, you're good. Via has a really great platform that allows you to kind of mix and match different transit options and find a route that works for you. So combining their Via Link platform, which allows you to get picked up like within a block or two of your home, take that to a major transit center, and from there take buses. And so you could marry all these pieces together to create a really robust opportunity to travel through the city efficiently and without necessarily needing a personal vehicle, which I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of paying for the gas in my truck. I just filled up, and I think I spent $80 filling up this thing. So it's,
you got to fill up after we leave this interview. What's your experience in policy developments and your approach to ensure that Sarah would comply with those regulations?
Sure. So, I mean, policy development has been a big part of my advocacy here in San Antonio for years. So I was honored to serve for Councilwoman Melissa Cabella-Haverda on the community committee advising on the 2022 through 27 bond. And so during that time, had a chance to look at how we were allocating that massive, it was $1.2 billion, I think, of total budget. And then the streets committee I was on was, I think, $500 million. And so one of the big policy discussions that I spearheaded during that was looking at how we're allocating the funding to support our street management operations. So you think about all those streets in your neighborhood that maybe are failing right now and need work, and how do we prioritize where we're investing, which council districts are getting the most dollars. And so the conversation that I led and ultimately was successful in securing through support of council was, well, we need to change the metric that we're allocating funds. So initially they were allocating funds based on, in part, who has the most roads. Forget how good they are, who has the most roads. And so if you've got a bunch of brand new streets, suddenly your metric is skewed and you're getting a bunch of dollars that maybe you don't need because you got brand new roads. Meanwhile, you've got some council districts that have some really bad roads. And so we have the data to show all that because the city scans all the roads on a periodic basis. And so I pushed forward, look, the size of the road network should not be a factor. We need to invest where the need is, wherever that ends up being. It shouldn't be about council districts trying to drag the most dollars. If there's one council district that needs more dollars, that's where it should go.
Right. That's a good idea. I mean, it's a lot of people don't think of those things because we don't know, right? Right. And we automatically assume, well, a lot of people automatically assume, well, the city, they're doing the best job they can, which I'm sure they are, but there should be more conversations to be had, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You kind of touched on the engagement with the public. What are you going to do to kind of get people more involved and engaged with the River Authority itself? I mean, especially for this race, like, what are you doing to kind of draw up engagement?
Absolutely.
Besides being on this awesome show.
Right. Alamo City Agenda is central to my entire answer for that question. No, I mean, this is, in all truthfulness, this is part of it, right? Making sure that as many platforms as possible that maybe wouldn't normally cover the San Antonio River, to encourage them to take it on. So I'm working with other platforms that, again, traditionally wouldn't cover this race to see if they're willing to step in and give courage and allow voters a chance to get some information they may need to make an informed decision. So that is part of it. But I think the biggest thing is boots on the ground. It's meeting people where they are. Because the San Antonio River Authority, I think, is really, really good at hosting events by the San Antonio River Authority for people who already know about the San Antonio River Authority.
Right.
That is a very, very tiny percentage of the total population. What would be much, much, much better is if, and to be clear, it's the harder answer. It's the one that's not nearly as easy, because it's really easy to host an event where you're there, and whoever wants to show up shows up. That's great. What is a lot harder?
I'm here for the food.
Right. What's a lot harder is it takes more manpower, but to show up at places where folks are already going, right? So a great example of all the neighborhood meetings, right? So what I'm already doing during the campaign, meeting with folks throughout the county and talking with them at the meetings they're already talking about their area. It'd be really great if Sarah representation was there to talk about, well, we have this Creekway project that's in your backyard, and we'd love to talk to you about it. We'd love to engage with you on how you want to see the plans adapted or molded to meet your needs.
Do you think it's an afterthought?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it happens right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's not. afterthought would be better than where we're at right now. I just don't think it happens. And to be clear, that's not an attack on the San Antonio River Authority. It's I think it's a blind spot because they've always done things a certain way, and also it's a budget issue, right? We're going to have to allocate more budget for staff to take time to do those kinds of things. But I think it's important to truly engage with the community and to honestly say that we've designed these projects in a way that reflects the needs of the communities where these things flow through.
Yeah.
If we're not doing that, then I don't think we're serving the folks that are directly impacted.
Yeah. Have a question here. How many miles of walk and bike trails is the goal? And I'll read the second one afterwards if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the answer to that, I think, is probably as many as possible. I don't have a specific number for you. The San Antonio River itself, we've got 240 miles of river. Certainly not all of that is going to make sense to put walkable, bikeable trails. Like I mentioned, the downstream counties are very, very rural. And so it just may not make sense for the infrastructure investment required to do that. But certainly anywhere where there's a dense population that would benefit from that commutability, I think is critical. Yeah. And so I think that goes back to community engagement, and it goes back to data, looking at where folks are and where we're seeing a lot of pedestrian and bike travel, maybe on roads where it could be diverted to creeks.
Yeah, definitely. And then how many have been completed and how many are still pending as far as the trails?
Yeah, so the San Pedro Creek, we just completed a stretch of that, and there's actually another stretch that is now in progress with the West Side Creeks effort that's ongoing. So the West Side Creeks is looking at the Martinez, Alazan, San Pedro, Apache, and Martinez Creeks, and so all of those have a large stretch that are being targeted. I don't have the exact mileage on hand, but it's many miles along each of those creeks are being targeted to add walkable, bikeable trails. A lot of them already have it, but it's not shaded and it's not very conducive for folks to actually travel along it, and so that'll be addressed as part of this. But it's
sorry.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not my nuts. Sorry.
Yeah. Why'd you bring your nuts?
I know. Sorry. It's my entourage. Thank you, Carlos, for the question. I appreciate it. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to. Oh, it's right here on the bottom. Have any questions for the candidates? Sarah's budget is critical.
Yep.
Like you were just talking about.
Yep.
What's your experience in budget management?
Sure. So, my 10 years over at Southwest Research, my job was managing multi-million-dollar budgets. So deeply familiar with the work required to do that well, and to ensure that you're delivering projects on time, on budget. And I think that's critical for anyone who's going to consider working in this role to bring to the table. I'll say we were working with public dollars there as well. It was primarily State Department of Transportation dollars, so like TxDOT. Mm-hmm. And so there was really no acceptable reason for the budget not to be in line and for the scope to not be in line, right? The taxpayers were sold on a certain thing being delivered, and so we had to make sure that happened, and we had to make sure it happened within the dollars available. So yeah, I mean, it's budgetary considerations are definitely critical and something that I'm proud to bring to the table.
That's good. Because that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. No joke. I will say Sarah is, of all the government entities that I'm familiar with, between the county, the city, all the other ones that operate here, certainly the state government, Sarah is one of the most effective that I'm aware of in terms of just really effective project management that ends up with the right deliverable, the right costs, and the right timeline. So
just need more peeps to reach out to.
Yeah.
Really, pretty much.
Yeah.
What's your vision for the river in general? And rivers.
Yes.
And again, he just said the downtown river is not part of Sarah, which was mind blowing for me because I had a question about it, and you just totally wrecked that question. But
you should ask the other candidates and see if they get the answer right.
Oh man, dirty. So what's your vision for the rivers?
I think the biggest thing is undoing some of our past mistakes. So I talked about the West Side Creeks and how we're taking some of those previously cement-sided creeks and eliminating that, which has been demonstrated to not be the most effective way to manage flooding, and certainly not the best thing for the environment. And so I'd love to see over time all of that done. And Westside Creeks goes a long way to getting that done and reintroducing the native plant life that will just revitalize the area and I think create significant opportunities for communities to benefit from that environment. Like we said, both from a transit perspective and from an economic development perspective.
Can you put like fruit trees in that area?
Sure.
Okay, the creeks that you mentioned, from my experience, they're usually in a lower income area.
Yep.
So how hard would it be to plant apple trees and different types of fruit that the community can go and pick off of?
Yep. No, I think it's a great idea. So it's I'm trying to remember. I was looking at all of the native trees. So that's the first thing. The focus for any wildlife that we introduce is we want it to be native. We want it to be something, and so there are a few reasons for that, but the biggest one is that means it's going to thrive. It's not going to need to be babysat. It's not going to need to be watered 3 times a week, which is just not sustainable, right? You need something that's going to be able to, once introduced, thrive on its own.
Figure it out.
Right. So a lot of the fruits that we would enjoy here wouldn't match that description, but plenty do. So like, for example, the Mexican plum is one of the ones that is on the list of natives that we are planning to introduce within the Westside Creeks effort. I'm trying to think if there were other, I can't think of other fruit trees offhand that were listed, but I'll take another look. But I agree with you. I think it would be excellent to create an opportunity where there was food available for folks just on the trees that are there.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
And even if they pick them and sell them on the side of the street, that's okay. It's a hustle.
I agree.
Okay, so with the rivers, if they don't have water in them, how much do you guys focus on those rivers specifically?
So yeah, I mean, obviously we've been in a drought, and so I actually went to the Blue Hole over on the Incarnate Word campus and took a look at that, and it was very not blue. It was very dry, and so that all has to do with the aquifer levels, and at a certain point the Blue Hole starts oozing water. But yeah, everything's been kind of dry. At the end of the day, we're going to invest in the creeks that are necessary for flood mitigation, again, being the number one priority. Sorry, I know I sound like a broken record, but I can't overstate how important that is to our mission. And so even if there's not water there now, which I don't think we have any creeks that are truly dry. They're low, a lot of them are very low, but they've all got water flowing as far as I'm aware, within Bear County. But it all comes down to, even if there's not water there now, is this going to be a critical artery for pulling water out in the event of a flood event?
Right.
And so that's what drives those investments first and foremost.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. In the realm of politics, and I'm not trying to do politics, but
come on, Eric.
How will you handle any conflicts of interest that come up, as far as with personal or political interest?
Sure. So I've actually had examples of this serving on the Brooks Board of Directors. So during my time working at Southwest Research, there were some project opportunities that involved Southwest Research. And I mean, the simple answer is recuse yourself. Don't be involved in that vote. Allow the other board members to make a decision where you're not equipped to do so. And a big part of your onboarding for any board that makes those kinds of decisions is meeting with the lawyers and having them recount to you what specifically is the appropriate recusal process with any conflicts that might exist. But I've recused myself a number of times over the years and would continue to do so whenever there was a conflict.
Gotcha. Okay. What's your favorite part of the river? Well, what is your favorite river, I guess is what I meant.
I can't pick just one. I'm not going to pick just
they're
one.
They're not all your babies. You got a favorite.
They are, though. No. So I will say I've got to go with the Mission Reach. So they just celebrated 10 years.
Downtown river.
No. It's a great economic driver. It's a great tourist industry driver, but
Yeah.
But no, the Mission Reach. So 10 years ago, we completed what we're now doing with the Westside Creeks on that. And oh my gosh, it's just beautiful.
Let's do it the West Side.
It's also right by Brooks, and so Brooks is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go with that. But I think the newly developed San Pedro Creek stretch that's up there now is really beautiful, and And I'm really excited to see what the West Side Creeks brings. Particularly, there's one stretch along I-10 that has always seemed to me like there was so much opportunity. Again, to your point, near a lower income area. And I think there's just so much opportunity to revitalize that area and provide a resource that folks can enjoy.
Why not put like events on or something? You know how they do, or by Tandem, they have some bands playing underneath the bridge or whatever. Like,
yeah.
You know.
So what I would love to see, and this is something I've just been kind of mulling around in my head. I haven't actually talked to anyone about it yet, but
exclusive.
Right, exclusive. Heard it here first. I would love to figure out a way to fund businesses that want to connect to the river. So folks that are already adjacent to it, but basically encourage bike and pedestrian traffic to come up to these businesses and engage with them. And so it could be concerts, it could be food venues, it could be any number of things like that. But basically kind of directly target that economic development aspect of what's happening here and equip those local businesses to thrive in conjunction with the investment we're making in the river. And I think there's significant opportunity there that maybe hasn't been tapped yet.
Yeah.
And so it would have to be in collaboration with the city or the county, because our budget, we wouldn't be able to do it. It's not something we can fund, but we can certainly ideate on it, and we can certainly engage with the organizations that can do it and be a driver towards something like that.
So like, here's our plan.
Yeah.
You do it. No.
Right. We'll provide the river, you provide the dollars But well, I mean, it's similar to, sorry, just one more point. The city's got a facade program going on right now where they're targeting some of the lower invested corridors where there's opportunity to build out better facades for the different businesses there. I think this is the same thing. The facade is just the riverfront. And so you're targeting riverfront traffic and encouraging them to come out. And I mean, this could be in combination with the kayaking programs we already have in place that allow people to take kayaks along. Hey, can we dock them and provide an opportunity for different businesses to receive that traffic?
Yeah.
So I think there's huge opportunity.
We are called the River City, but the rivers are not implemented in our daily lives.
We're working on it, all right?
Yeah. I'm just saying. You know, I don't know if anybody thought about that, like just thinking about that, you know what I mean? What's your level of commitment that you have to protect the river and natural resources and wildlife?
I mean, I think it's critical. Like I said earlier, the river is the reason we're here. We would literally not be geographically here if the river were not. It's central to our current success and our future success. And I think it's central to getting on top of some of the really challenging, less than equitable outcomes for folks that have previously happened. I think if we spread this investment along these creekways, that'll be a huge step in the right direction.
It's worked for the downtown river, right?
Yeah.
So invest in the rest of the rivers.
Right.
Do you think... Oh, well, that's not, because that was one of my questions for the actual downtown river. When we have issues that arise, like with the commercial pollution, like let's say Kielbasa, when they happen, that pollution, I'm going to say it because I don't care. You know, what will is Sarah responsible for anything like that, or fight anything in regards to any legal battles with pollution, or no? That
is generally not our purview.
Okay.
We certainly might advise other entities that would engage with that and provide the data to support a case, right? I mean, one of our big jobs is to quantify the cleanliness or lack thereof of the river. And so we'll do that after major storm events. We'll do that ongoing throughout. And so we would have the data to support a case. But I don't know that we would directly litigate that. I think we would engage with our county and city partners and with the state to deal with that if that were to arise.
Yeah. Okay. You already talked about getting people to get excited and go vote. So if you want to do a little bit more, that's fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so I think there's two really exciting things on the ballot. There's 14 constitutional amendments. I'll point you to the League of Women Voters that has an amazing nonpartisan guide that'll walk you through.
I'm going to cover those too. So.
Oh, awesome. Eric's going to cover them too. So Eric's a great resource too.
No.
So those are really exciting and definitely worth your time to investigate. I will say Proposition 9 on there is looking at the cost of living increase for teachers, particularly retired teachers. And I think that's something that is probably something we all recognize needs to be addressed. So I'll certainly be supporting that, and I encourage y'all to do the same. But there are 13 other ones that warrant your investigation and making an informed decision.
There's one with property taxes.
Yes, number four. Number four is property taxes.
Well, I don't want to do the horn for property taxes because I'm against property taxes. But fight the property taxes.
And then of course the San Antonio River Authority. So bringing in new leadership for both of your at-large representatives for Bexar County, I think is going to be critical. That's a huge percentage of the total board right there. And so making sure you make an informed decision on who you're going to support there. But then also just, I mean, the biggest thing here is because it is inherently going to be a low turnout vote, every person who comes out, I know it's a cliche and everyone says it, but more so than pretty much every other election, your vote will matter.
You got to do that. Vote will matter.
Yeah, that was perfect timing. You got that just right. So yeah, please do go out and vote. Yeah. I don't think Bear Elections has announced where the polling locations are yet. But once those are available, we'll be sure to make those available on my website. So if you go to danrossiter.org, that's Dan, ROSSITER.org. That'll get you the information you need. I think Eric has also tagged my page in his post, so you can also find information on my Facebook as well. I do also want to point folks who are interested. We are going to have an event at Deco Pizzeria at 1:30 p.m. this coming Sunday, so October 1st. We'd love to see y'all out there. We've got Ray Lopez and Councilwoman Melissa Cabella-Haverda both confirmed there, two of my endorsers. And it should be a really fun event. We'll have food available and a cash bar if you are so inclined.
Oh, I didn't do it. Hold on.
There we go. There we go. It was timely enough.
It was a little bit. Yeah.
But that should be fun. I do want to mention briefly. So I mentioned State Representative Ray Lopez with House District 125, Councilwoman Melissa Cabella-Haverda with Council District 6, and then also finally former Judge Nelson Wolf, all endorsing my candidacy. And I'm really proud to be able to bring that really exciting support to the campaign.
Gotta do it.
That was perfect. That one was on.
Yeah, that was on point. Yeah. What are some takeaways from your campaign?
Sure. Someone with the right experience professionally. So I've sat there, I've done business with public dollars for many years, managed multi-million-dollar budgets, but also someone who has a proven track record engaging with the community and delivering results based on what those communities need. And I think you want a candidate that has that spread of both. And I'm proud to bring that in spades, and I look forward to serving the Bexar County residents.
All right. What's your favorite music era?
Music era. Oh man, the hair bands were great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Are you a Swiftie? This is critical. This could make or break you.
Oh man. I'm not a huge fan of the whole whining about your exes thing, but you know.
Nice.
No, I do like some of her music. I thought it was very impressive that her fans were able to create a earthquake. That's pretty impressive.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know of any other artist that's achieved that. So.
And they got 30,000 people to go register to vote.
That is awesome.
So
hey, I might have to become a Swiftie now.
I'm telling you. I'm a Swiftie because my wife. So she told me I had to. What's your favorite local food spot? Where can we find Dan Rossiter?
Yeah,
eating so we could go harass him. And that's fine.
No, so I think so. My favorite local haunt that's just a mile or two from me is Barrio Barista. Okay. Their West Side special, if you haven't had it, barbacoa grilled cheese, and then it comes with a cup of tomato soup. So you dip the, oh my God. So that's amazing. And then the other, I'm going to give two because I'm going to cheat.
That's fine.
The other one is the original donut shop. And so because Can you think of anything more San Antonio than a donut shop that is known for their tacos and not their donuts?
Yeah. I finally had one. I think it was last year. And I was like, okay.
How was the line when you
It
pulled
wasn't
up?
too bad. I almost got hit a couple times from the pond. Yeah, but whatever.
Well, because the line always ends up queuing out into Fredericksburg, right? And then
I got yelled at too. They're like, "Go move up!" by the ladies who work there. I was like, "Damn, I can't show my face."
They don't play around.
No, they don't. So if you're gonna go to the original donut shop, you better know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, because I didn't know, and I went up and I got yelled at. So.
And make sure you go to the right counter. One counter for donuts, one counter for tacos.
Well, I went to a drive-through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I got yelled at because I went through the wrong.
Oh.
You're supposed to follow some pattern, and I totally got it wrong. She came out. She was like, "Next time you need to go." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry."
Man, agitating the local businesses.
That's terrible. What's one thing that people might not know about you?
Oh man. So
Exclusive.
So people know it, but I don't talk about it a lot on the campaign because it's kind of quirky. But I'm a computer scientist by degree.
Okay.
So I got my computer science degree from UTSA years ago, and then the way I ended up in transportation was that the projects I was working on were looking at taking that technology and marrying it with the physical infrastructure to improve efficiencies. So I'm a huge data nerd. I love to get into the technology and kind of understand inefficiencies and find ways to make things work better, even in places where you might not expect it, like your roads.
Yeah. Just, that needs to be fixed. That for sure needs to be fixed. But yeah, well, awesome, Dan. I appreciate it. Again, thank you guys for joining. We will have 2 more interviews with 2 more Sarah candidates as well, or San Antonio River Authority, for those who don't know. So join in, tune in, ask questions. Thank you, Dan, for coming out. And thank you again for Wild Barley for letting us host this as usual. And please make sure you register to vote if you haven't. We will be covering the 10 constitutional amendments as well. 14 constitutional amendments. Just 10 sounded like a good number, you know what I mean? So we'll be covering those as well. My plan is to have a couple of representatives hopefully come out to hear from their mouth directly. I want to try to get 2 different sides just in case to see. I don't know how that'll work, but it'd be kind of cool to get some references from different point of views. So
I'd be happy to get you connected if there are folks you're interested in.
Of course.
I've got a couple ideas that might be good fits to match up with what you're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Anybody else too, send them my way. But but thank you guys. Appreciate it, Dan, for coming.
That's my pleasure.
And you guys have a great day. We'll see you here at 10 o'clock soon. All right. Later. Peace.
See y'all.